After making the decision to cut off Dominic's monthly allowance, I felt a strange mixture of relief and dread. Relief, because I no longer had to watch half my paycheck vanish to keep afloat a man who refused to find a serious job. Dread, because I knew my parents, especially my mother, would be furious. She had always been protective of Dominic, claiming that he was simply going through a rough patch in life. In her eyes, as the younger sibling, I should step up to the role of caretaker without complaint. The very next morning, I woke up to the reality of my new conviction. I sat at the small table in my new condo, still furnished with only a couple of folding chairs, and logged into my banking app. I canceled the recurring transfer that automatically deposited a portion of my salary into Dominic's account each month. My heart pounded, and for a moment I questioned if I should give him a warning, some time to adjust. But then I remembered his sneer, his dismissive attitude. I pictured him on the other end of the line, smirking as he spent the money I worked so hard to earn. That same day, I picked up the phone and dialed his number. He answered on the third ring, yawning into the receiver like he'd just woken up at noon. It was already past midday for me. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "We need to talk about the payments." He gave a lazy laugh. "What about them?" I took a deep breath. "I'm stopping them, Dom. I can't keep doing this. You and Caroline need to find other ways to handle your bills." He must have thought I was joking, because he snorted. "Stop messing with me, little brother. Anyway, I was thinking maybe you could PayPal me something extra by Friday. Car's making a funny noise. I might need to take it to the shop." My knuckles tightened around the phone. "I'm serious. I can't keep sending you money. It's not my responsibility to support your family. I've got my own future to think about." Silence, as though he was actually stunned. Then came the storm. "What the hell? How could you do that to me, your own brother?" His voice rose in pitch, laced with hysterical anger. "You have a place to live. I'm stuck in this dump of an apartment. How do you expect me to pay my rent or feed my kids?" "They're your kids, Dom," I replied, my tone as icy as I could manage. "Your responsibility. You're more than capable of finding work. You've had job offers. You've turned them down because you said they didn't meet your standards. My money isn't going to fund your pride anymore." He descended into incoherent shouting, cursing at me. He accused me of turning my back on family, claiming I'd never have gotten where I was if he hadn't supported me when we were younger. Finally, I just hung up. I braced myself for the backlash, but nothing prepared me for the immediate deluge of phone calls from other family members. My mother called that afternoon. Her voice cracked as she admonished me for my selfishness. She told me Dominic was in tears, that his kids might go hungry, that Caroline was worried about losing the apartment. My father, who rarely took sides, asked me to at least give Dominic a few more months of support. But I was resolute. Each time they pressured me, I asked them, "How many months did he promise me he would need when he first lost his job?" He said 6. "It's been 2 years. My mother responded, "You're his brother, Mark. He needs you. So does his family. Where is your compassion?" I wanted to scream into the phone. Where was his gratitude? But I swallowed my temper. Instead, I calmly said, "He'll never learn to stand on his own 2 feet if I keep carrying him. He's had enough time and opportunities, and he's never even shown a hint of genuine appreciation." She hung up on me in a huff. I dropped my phone onto the table and sat back, exhaling slowly. My new condo, once a symbol of personal achievement, now felt tainted by this fresh family conflict. A tension I hadn't experienced in years began to coil in my stomach. However, I refused to back down. The lines were drawn. For the next month, an uneasy silence fell over my relationship with Dominic. My mother tried to mediate several times, but I kept telling her that the topic wasn't negotiable. Dominic's kids, Phoebe and Jake, were caught in the crossfire, which made me feel guilty on some nights. But deep down, I was convinced that if Dominic wanted to provide for his children, he'd do whatever it took to make that happen. His problem was never lack of opportunity, but his own inability to let go of pride. He wanted a job that matched his self-image, a high-paying position that would grant him the same financial status he once bragged about to others. Meanwhile, he was letting his own family suffer while living off my military salary. Just as I settled into the new normal, I received a surprising phone call from Caroline, his wife. She rarely reached out to me, other than sending random texts requesting money or telling me about the kids' birthdays. "Hey," she said quietly, as though she didn't want Dominic to hear. "So, Dom told me you're cutting us off." I waited, unsure of her angle. "Yeah," I finally said. "I had to." She sighed. "I understand. Honestly, I tried to convince him to accept one of the job offers he's gotten. We even fought about it. He's angry all the time now." Her voice trembled. "I'm worried about him, about what he might do." Caroline's words triggered a swirl of conflicted emotions in me. She sounded genuinely distressed. Though I was still furious with Dominic, hearing Caroline's shaky voice and imagining my niece and nephew in a tumultuous household pricked my conscience. "I'm sorry it had to come to this," I told her. "But I want to be clear. I'm not punishing him. He just can't expect me to bankroll his life forever. He's got to take responsibility." Caroline hesitated, then said, "I know. Honestly, Mark, I'm starting to resent him too. The arguments in this house never end. The kids are tense, the rent is overdue, and he still thinks a prestigious company will come calling any day. It's not right." I swallowed hard. "Look, if there's something urgent, like food or medical bills for the kids, you can call me. But I won't pay for everything. I won't pay for your rent or his credit card debt. That's final." Her relief was palpable. "Thank you. Really. I appreciate that." Then her voice lowered. "Dom doesn't know I called you. He'd be furious if he found out. But I had to say something, because I feel like he's spiraling. Just keep it between us, okay?" I promised I would. After that conversation, my nights were plagued by vivid dreams, nightmares really, of being stuck between a rock and a hard place, my brother's financial mismanagement and my own conscience. The tension in my chest grew sharper, day by day. A gnawing sense of vengeance stirred in me. Not that I wanted to do physical harm to him, but I wanted Dominic to understand. I wanted him to learn how hard I had worked to create a stable life. Yet my desire for personal vindication was overshadowed by a sense of guilt. Not only guilt for cutting off my own flesh and blood, but for having reached a point where revenge was even a consideration. I kept telling myself, it's not revenge. It's just doing the right thing. But sometimes the line between the two was blurry. I was in the middle of a month-long field exercise on base when I received a text from my dad. "Call me ASAP about Dominic." Something happened. Fear surged through my veins. My mind conjured images of hospital beds and tragic accidents. When I finally reached him by phone, he sounded both exasperated and weary. "Your brother tried to confront me and your mother," Dad said, his voice taut. "He was demanding we take out a loan to cover his expenses since you cut him off. He practically accused us of favoring you. He said we paid for your army life, but not his. Which is nonsense, of course. He stormed out of our house, shouting that no one in the family has his back." I exhaled, my heart pounding. "Has he even looked for a job?" Dad sighed. "He claims to be looking, but he's turned down at least 3 different positions. Says they're beneath him. He's gotten bitter, Mark, and we don't know how to handle it." The call left me seething. Dominic had twisted the narrative to make himself the victim. Memories from our youth bled into my thoughts, how he used to be my protector. There was a time, long before all this, when Dominic and I were thick as thieves, exploring the woods behind our childhood home, cracking jokes, sneaking out at night to look at the stars. Sometimes he'd let me stay up late, telling ghost stories with a flashlight under his chin. Those memories felt distant and tainted now, overshadowed by the present reality. That night, as the wind whistled through the tents on base, I lay awake, wondering if the unconditional brotherly bond we once had was truly gone. I had to remind myself that this was not my doing alone. People change, families get strained by circumstances, and sometimes love becomes overshadowed by resentment and entitlement. Still, the anger in my gut refused to subside. His words, "If you can afford a condo, you can pay my bills," played on repeat in my head, fueling a sense of betrayal I couldn't extinguish. When the field exercise concluded, I returned to the condo to find an unexpected voicemail from Dominic. "Hey, Mark," he said, sounding strangely calm. "I need to see you. I'm coming your way. Pick me up from the airport on Saturday. I want to talk about all this." I wasn't sure whether to feel relief or dread. Part of me feared he was going to barge in with demands, threats, or manipulations. Another part of me dared to hope he had finally come to his senses. Against my better judgment, I texted him back, confirming I'd pick him up. Saturday arrived cold and rainy. I drove to the airport with the wipers flicking back and forth. My stomach knotted, unsure of what confrontation might lie ahead. When I spotted Dominic stepping off the escalator, I barely recognized him. He looked thinner, his eyes surrounded by heavy shadows. He was wearing an old jacket, and his once carefully styled hair was disheveled. In that moment, a twinge of sympathy almost overpowered my anger. But then he saw me, and his expression hardened. As we made eye contact, he replaced any vulnerability he might have shown with a sharp glare. "Hey," I said softly. He responded with a curt nod. We walked to my car in silence, and not a word was exchanged until I pulled out of the airport and onto the highway. My eyes stayed on the rain-slicked road as I asked, "So what's going on? Why'd you come all this way?" He cleared his throat, a tense noise. "We need to talk face-to-face about this whole situation. I need you to understand the pressure I'm under." I braced myself. "I've understood for a long time. You're a father, you're not working, you've got bills piling up." "That's not what I mean," he said sharply. "I mean I'm tired of everyone judging me. You, Dad, everyone. They don't see the stress I have in trying to live up to people's expectations. You know me, Mark. I always aimed high. I wanted a career that would let me provide for my family better than Dad did for us." I risked a quick glance at him. "There's nothing wrong with aiming high, Dom. The issue is refusing to do anything else in the meantime. That's why you're in this position." He snapped back. "You say that like it's so easy. You're in the army. You always know where your next paycheck is coming from." My anger flared. "It's not easy. I literally put my life on the line for that paycheck. I've spent years away from home, training, deploying, risking everything. You think that's easy? You think it's not work?" He turned away, shoulders hunched. I guess I never thought of it that way. We reached my condo, and the drive ended in a brooding silence. I parked, turned off the engine, and let the patter of rain fill the quiet space. "Let's go inside," I finally said, not really wanting to prolong the tension in the car. Dominic set his single piece of luggage down in my living room. He looked around, taking in the sparse furniture, the neatly stacked boxes I still hadn't fully unpacked. "This is it, huh?" he said. "Yeah," I answered, crossing my arms over my chest. "Not exactly a palace, but I'm proud of it." He frowned, like he was unimpressed. "I thought you'd have more stuff. Don't soldiers get a ton of benefits?" I bit back an irritated retort. "Dom, if you came here just to nitpick my lifestyle, this is going to be a short visit." He exhaled, taking a moment to calm himself. "Look, I'm sorry. I don't want to argue. I came here because, well, I don't know what else to do." I studied his face. There was a genuine torment behind his eyes that I hadn't noticed before. Maybe it was the memory of him once being my protector, but for a moment, my anger softened. "Sit down," I said, pointing at the couch. "I'll get us something to drink." A few minutes later, we were seated across from each other, the sound of the heater clicking on as the afternoon rain continued outside. For the first time in many months, we had a serious conversation without shouting. "I have some job interviews next week," Dominic said finally. "Caroline kept pushing me to take them. They're not glamorous. One is a sales position, the other is an office manager gig. Pay isn't great, but it might be something to start with." "That's a good step," I said, choosing my words carefully. "But if you hate the idea of those jobs, why are you here? If you already have interviews lined up, that's progress." He shifted uncomfortably. "Because I'm behind on the rent and credit card bills. Even if I get one of these jobs, I'll be in the hole for months. I might lose the apartment. Caroline keeps saying we should sell some of our stuff, downsize, maybe move in with her sister temporarily." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I can't do that, Mark. It's humiliating. And you think continuing to ask me for money is less humiliating?" I asked, my eyes narrowing. He shot me a glare, then softened. "I guess I sound pathetic. But you don't understand the shame of telling your kids they have to sleep on someone else's couch. Or that we have to give away our dog because the new place won't allow pets." His voice cracked. "I know it's my own fault, but I need more time." The old me would have caved, maybe offered him a few more months. But I remembered how he sneered at me on the phone. This time I steel myself. "I'm willing to help the kids if they need groceries. or if something medical comes up. But I'm not paying your rent again. No more monthly handouts, Dom. I can't. He stared at me, a mixture of hurt and defiance in his eyes. Then something in him snapped. You're punishing me, he hissed through clenched teeth. Don't pretend otherwise. You wanted to buy this condo and show off. Then you wanted to teach me a lesson, right? I stood up, my voice rising involuntarily. Show off? Do you even know how many years of saving and sacrifice went into buying this place? I'm not teaching you a lesson. I'm simply reclaiming my right to my own life. You don't deserve my money. Nobody does. You have to earn what you want. His face twisted with bitterness. He looked like he might lash out physically, but he just clenched his fists, trembling with rage. Fine, he muttered. Maybe I wasted my time coming here. He marched to the guest room and slammed the door shut. I sat on the couch, staring at the closed door, heart pounding. The desire for revenge flared in my veins. Let him stew in there, I thought. Maybe he'll finally realize how wrong he's been. That night was tense. Dominic stayed in the guest room, only emerging to use the bathroom or grab a glass of water. I didn't try to initiate conversation. My anger felt too raw, and I could practically taste the resentment emanating from him. The next morning, I headed to the base early, leaving him a note that I would be gone until afternoon. I needed space, and I hoped he would cool off. When I returned in the late afternoon, the condo was strangely quiet. I called out, Dom. No answer. I checked the guest room. He was gone, and so was his luggage. A confusing swirl of emotions overcame me. Relief, disappointment, worry. He had vanished without a word, leaving the key to my place on the table and a scribbled note that read, I can't stay here, not like this. Over the following week, I received a flood of frantic calls and texts from Mom, Dad, and Caroline. Apparently, Dominic had left me to search for a short-term gig in a neighboring city, couch surfing at a friend's place. Caroline said he was barely calling her, and that tensions between them were at an all-time high. She feared for their marriage, but also insisted she was done enabling his prideful avoidance of real work. My parents, on the other hand, were in panic mode. They were convinced something bad might happen if Dominic continued down this path, cut off from everyone who tried to help. Amid all this turmoil, I tried my best to focus on my duties. It wasn't easy. Every time my phone buzzed, I tensed up, bracing for another piece of drama. One evening, just as I was finishing a late shift, I checked my messages and found a string of them from my mother. Her distressed voice crackled in my ear when I finally called her back. She wasted no time. Mark, you have to talk to your brother. He's absolutely furious at you, saying you humiliated him by making him come all the way out to your condo only to turn him away empty-handed. He's telling everyone in the family that you flaunted your lifestyle and told him he was worthless. I rubbed my forehead. That's not what happened, Mom. He came, demanded money, we argued, and he left. I didn't ask him to leave. He chose to. Listen, you know how he is. He's twisting the story. She let out a heavy sigh, the strain evident in her voice. I know, but you also know your brother is volatile right now. You need to call him. Work this out before it gets even worse. I gave a bitter laugh. He's the one who needs to call me, Mom. He's the one who stormed out. He's the one who's refused every job he thinks is beneath him. When does he take responsibility? Silence. My mother had no response, because deep down, she knew I was right. Still, the guilt pressed on me, unstoppable as a rising tide. By the time we ended the call, I felt more determined than ever to stand my ground, even as my heart ached from the family rift I was causing. Just when I thought the drama had peaked, fate took a cruel turn. One afternoon, Caroline called me in tears. She said that Dominic had gotten into a minor car accident, his old car finally breaking down for good. Insurance wouldn't cover much of the cost. They were still behind on rent, and the landlord had started eviction proceedings. Caroline was frantic, not knowing where to turn. Mark, please, she begged through muffled sobs. I'm not asking for thousands, but if we can't scrape together at least half of what we owe the landlord, we'll be on the street. Please, I'm worried for the kids. My resolve began to crumble. I told her I'd send enough to cover groceries for the next few weeks, and maybe a little extra for the kids' needs. But I repeated that I wouldn't pay the rent. She swallowed hard, thanked me, and hung up. That night, I tossed and turned, haunted by the image of my niece and nephew forced into a shelter because of Dominic's negligence. Days passed, and the tension in my chest worsened. Part of me wanted to be done with the whole mess, to wash my hands of Dominic's affairs and never look back. But I couldn't forget that these were my own family members suffering, especially children who had no say in the matter. My sense of duty warred with my desire for retribution. A swirling storm of guilt, anger, and heartbreak enveloped me. Then, out of the blue, I got a message from Dominic himself. It was a simple text, just a single sentence. "I need to see you again. Urgent." We agreed to meet at a diner off the highway, halfway between my condo and the friend's place where Dominic was staying. It was a bleak, overcast afternoon, matching the dread swirling in my stomach. I arrived first and took a seat in a corner booth. The diner smelled of stale coffee and fried food. Every tick of the clock on the wall made my heart pound heavier. Dominic strolled in about 15 minutes later, wearing the same jacket he'd had before, face set in a grim mask. He slid into the booth across from me, ignoring the waitress who asked if we wanted coffee. "You said it was urgent," I muttered, trying not to sound too combative. "What's going on?" He leaned forward, eyes bloodshot, voice low and intense. "I got an eviction notice. I have 2 weeks to pay everything we owe or vacate the apartment. I'm broke, Mark. The money you gave Caroline for groceries is almost gone." He paused, swallowing hard. "And I can't watch my kids live in a car." A wave of guilt tightened my throat. I glanced away, struggling to keep my resolve. "Dom, I'm sorry, but I can't pay your rent. I told you that." He banged his fist lightly on the table, causing a nearby patron to glance in our direction. "This is our family, Mark. Why can't you see that I'm desperate? I never thought it would get this bad." My anger, fueled by his previous behavior, rushed to the surface. I gritted my teeth, eyes blazing into his. "I have been helping. You just decided it wasn't enough. You think the world owes you something because you can't let go of your pride. Maybe if you'd taken any of those jobs you called beneath you, you wouldn't be here begging me." We glared at each other in silent fury, two siblings separated by bitterness and regret. Finally, Dominic dropped his gaze. His shoulders sagged. He looked as if he might break into tears right there in the diner. I tried to land a better job," he stammered, voice hollow. "I just wanted to give my kids a life I never had. Isn't that what we all want?" A heavy silence followed, punctuated only by the clink of dishes in the background. "I know you do," I said softly, "but your approach is what's flawed. You're letting your pride rule you. Meanwhile, your family is suffering. Do you understand that?" He stared down at his hands. His voice cracked when he responded. "I do. But I don't know how to fix it anymore. Despite my anger, I felt a flicker of empathy. Start by taking any honest job that comes your way. Swallow your pride for your family. And stop blaming others for your problems." I hesitated, then added, "If you're truly committed, I'll help you with some of the overdue rent. But you have to promise you won't rely on my money anymore after this. I'm done being your crutch." He blinked, taken aback. It was a lifeline, and he knew it. "Are you serious?" "Yes. But there are conditions," I stated firmly. "You take one of those jobs you've been offered. You cut your lifestyle down to the bare minimum until you get back on track. No more credit cards. No more lavish spending you can't afford. And you can't come to me expecting me to bail you out if you refuse to do what it takes to support your own family." Dominic nodded slowly, tears gathering in his eyes. I get it, Mark. I'm sorry for how I acted. I was angry, and I took it out on you. That's not fair. I was scared. Still am." My own eyes brimmed with emotion. The anger in me hadn't vanished, but it was overshadowed by the hope that he might finally take real steps toward fixing his life. "Okay," I said. "Then we do this on my terms. You do your part, I'll do mine." We hammered out a deal right there, writing figures on a napkin, accompanied by a handshake that was more significant than any we'd had since we were kids. Dominic would accept the office manager job, which started in a week. I would lend him enough to cover a portion of the overdue rent, so the eviction would be halted. He and Caroline would drastically cut back on expenses. It wasn't a solution that brought me joy, but it felt like the right thing, given how desperate the situation was. Within a week, Dominic had moved back into the apartment, eviction postponed. He started the office manager job on a Monday morning, wearing a crumpled shirt and tie. According to Caroline's text updates, he was tense and awkward on his first day, but at least he showed up. I held my breath, worried he might quit at the first sign of discomfort. But he stuck with it. Meanwhile, my parents, relieved that we had reached some form of truce, tried to persuade me to be more lenient if Dominic faltered. I resisted. It was time to break the cycle of enabling. Mom gave me the usual guilt trip, but I stood firm, reminding her that even this partial rent bailout was more than I wanted to do after everything that had happened. Caroline expressed cautious optimism, telling me that Dominic was finally confronting the reality that he might not be able to match his old salary for some time. She also thanked me repeatedly, acknowledging that without my partial assistance, they would have been on the street. Though I felt better knowing the kids had a roof over their heads, I couldn't deny the bitterness that still clung to me, a reminder of the months, no years, of tension and financial strain I'd endured. Dominic and I maintained an uneasy peace, our conversations clipped and businesslike. I still felt the sting of his sneering words, and I didn't fully trust that his pride wouldn't flare up again. The vengeance that once burned hot in me had cooled, replaced by a cautious watchfulness. I didn't want to punish my brother anymore, but I also refused to let him drag me down. Just when things began looking up, Dominic had held his job for about 2 months, the kids were in better spirits, and Caroline was working part-time to help with bills. A shocking incident threatened to shatter our fragile peace. I just wrapped up another training exercise on base when I saw a missed call from my bank. Alarmed, I dialed back, only to discover that someone had attempted to withdraw a significant amount from my account. My heart pounded, panic surging through me. Had I been hacked? The bank representative confirmed that someone had used my personal details to try and initiate a transfer. When I asked where it was going, they gave me an email that I recognized. It was Dominic's personal email. A chill coursed through my veins, turning my confusion into fury. My own brother, the one I had just helped bail out, had tried to access my account without my permission. I stood frozen, phone pressed to my ear, every muscle in my body tight with rage and disbelief. After confirming the attempted fraud, I rushed home, locking myself in my condo, seething with betrayal. Memories of me and Dominic sharing laughs on warm summer evenings, dreaming about the future, clashed with the horrifying realization that he had tried to steal from me. For a few minutes, I paced, wrestling with whether I should call the police or confront Dominic directly. I felt the old thirst for revenge flare up inside me, the desire to expose him, to ensure he felt the full consequences of his actions. But then I thought about the kids, about Caroline, about what a police record would do to him in his precarious state. With adrenaline surging, I punched his number on my phone and braced myself. He picked up on the second ring, sounding agitated. "Mark? Why are you calling me now? What the hell did you do?" I cut him off, voice trembling with fury. "You tried to withdraw money from my bank account. Are you insane?" He stammered, and for a moment I thought he might deny it. But then he broke down. I had no choice," he cried, sounding cornered. "Our car insurance payment was due, and Caroline didn't get paid yet. My boss is holding my paycheck for another week. We were desperate. I thought, maybe I could borrow from you without asking, just this once." I couldn't believe my ears. My vision blurred with rage. Borrow from me without asking? That's called stealing, Dominic. After everything I've done, you go behind my back and try to rob me? He began rambling, voice breaking. I'm sorry. I know it's wrong. I just didn't know what else to do. I was scared you'd say no. I wasn't thinking straight. Red-hot anger filled my chest, but somewhere under that anger was an aching sadness. My own brother had stooped to this. "I can't believe you," I whispered, knuckles white around the phone. "I can't believe you're still blaming your desperation for your own horrible actions. You realize you could go to jail for this? I should press charges." He let out a choked sob. "Please, I'm begging you, don't do that. I'm sorry. I swear I'll never try anything like that again." I wanted to scream at him, to unload every ounce of fury. But I forced myself to breathe, to remember that stooping to revenge wouldn't solve anything. "Dominic," I said in a low, trembling voice, "we're done. Do you understand me? I'm not giving you another penny. I'm not talking to you. I'm through enabling you, and I'm done trying to help you. If you come near my finances again, I will press charges. Get it together, or lose everything, but leave me out of it. Don't call me, don't text me. He made strangled sounds of protest, but I ended the call. My heart pounded so violently I thought I might be sick. The condo felt suffocatingly small. Fear, anger, betrayal, heartbreak, they all slammed into me in waves. I stayed up late that night, staring at the ceiling, reevaluating my entire life. How could I have been so blind, so gullible? Yet, I realized that what I felt wasn't just rage at Dominic, but sorrow. I mourned the brother I used to know, the one who would never have considered stealing from his own flesh and blood. But that brother seemed gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized, someone consumed by bitterness and desperation. In the days that followed, I took steps to protect myself. I changed all my passwords, set up extra security measures with my bank, and even placed a temporary freeze on my credit. I informed my commanding officer of the situation, just in case Dominic tried anything else. I dreaded the possibility that he might try to show up at the base. Fortunately, he didn't. Caroline called me, sobbing, after she learned what Dominic had done. She apologized profusely, said she'd had no idea, and begged me not to involve the police. I assured her I wouldn't, for the kids' sake, as much as anything else. But I made it clear that my patience was at its end. This is between you and Dominic now, I told her. I can't help you anymore. My parents soon found out, of course. They were horrified. My mother cried. My father was thunderous with anger, and both tried to patch things up. They asked me to give Dominic another chance. I refused. I told them I needed time, space, and that as far as I was concerned, Dominic needed to stand on his own or fall. No more half measures. My father, who had always been the calm one, actually supported me. He said Dominic crossed a line that shouldn't be crossed. Mom wavered between anger at Dominic and heartbreak over the schism in the family. Unsettled days became anxious weeks. The tension slowly receded from my daily life, replaced by a hollow feeling. I found that even though the anger had abated, I was haunted by sadness and regret. Part of me wanted to fix the relationship, but I saw no path forward. Dominic had burned the last bridge with his attempted theft. Months went by without any direct contact between me and Dominic. Caroline kept me updated indirectly, but always in vague terms. She said he was still at the office manager job. Not particularly happy, but at least he was earning a steady paycheck. The kids were in school, adjusting to a more modest lifestyle. They'd sold one of their cars and moved into a cheaper apartment, which Dominic had begrudgingly accepted after he realized the rent at their old place was unsustainable. As time passed, the immediate sting of betrayal dulled. My daily routine on base, plus the friendships I had forged there, helped me move forward. I threw myself into my work, signed up for additional classes to advance in rank, and even started considering the idea of further investments. My condo felt more like home, especially as I decorated it with small personal touches. One evening, after a particularly long day, I sat on my balcony, gazing at the sunset, phone in hand. My finger hovered over Dominic's name in my contact list. I didn't want to speak to him, but curiosity gnawed at me. A swirl of unresolved feelings stirred in my chest. I wondered if he had changed, if maybe some part of him was remorseful enough to fix things. In the end, I closed the contact. The next morning, I signed up for therapy sessions offered on base. Talking to someone neutral about the family drama brought clarity and relief. My therapist helped me see that I wasn't a villain for choosing to protect myself. Nor was I entirely blameless. By enabling Dominic for so long, I had inadvertently fed the cycle of dependence. It was a harsh truth, but one that helped me heal. Half a year after Dominic tried to steal from me, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't pick up, but something compelled me. On the other end was Dominic, his voice raw and humble in a way I hadn't heard in years. "Mark," he said softly, "I understand if you hang up. But please, just let me say this." My heart hammered in my chest. "I'm listening," I said warily. "I'm sorry," he began. "Really sorry. I've been going to counseling myself. Caroline gave me an ultimatum, therapy or divorce. I'm trying to change, Mark. I don't expect you to forgive me easily, but I wanted you to know I'm done blaming others. It's time I faced my own failures." I remained silent, letting him talk. He explained that the office manager job was still tough on his ego, but he was learning to manage his pride. He confessed that the shame of nearly losing his family forced him to confront his self-destructive behavior. "I'm not asking for money," he said, voice trembling with emotion. "I swear. I miss my brother. I messed up big time. And if I were in your shoes, I might never speak to me again. But I'm trying to make amends. I want to see if there's any way we can at least talk once in a while like normal human beings." I felt tears well up, though I forced myself to stay composed. "Dominic," I said quietly, "I spent a lot of time hating you for what you did, but I also spent a lot of time blaming myself for enabling you. I'm not ready to let you fully back into my life, not yet, but I appreciate your honesty." He sniffled, as if relieved I hadn't slammed the phone down. "That's fair. I just want to do better. For me, for my kids, and if it's not too late for us." His sincerity touched a deep chord in me. For so long, I had yearned to hear him admit his mistakes, to take ownership of his life. Part of me was still wary, but there was hope in his voice I couldn't ignore. "I hear you," I murmured. Let's keep in touch. Slowly. But don't expect miracles overnight. I have to protect myself, too." "Understood," he said. "Thank you for even hearing me out." After we hung up, I sat there, phone in hand, trying to process the emotional storm swirling in my chest. This wasn't the triumphant moment of revenge I once fantasized about. Instead, it was the cautious opening of a door I thought had been slammed shut forever. In the months that followed, Dominic would text me updates about his progress, small victories like paying off an overdue bill, or a raise he got for good performance at the office. At first, I didn't know how to respond beyond a curt, "Good job." Gradually, though, I found myself genuinely cheering for him. There were still lingering scars, but it seemed we were both healing in our own ways. Caroline often called me with more encouraging news. She spoke about how Dominic was becoming more involved with the kids' school activities, how he'd taken on side gigs to make extra money, and how therapy was helping him let go of the bitterness he'd harbored for so long. She ended every call by thanking me for not pressing charges and for giving Dominic the space he needed to grow up. I began to feel a sense of cautious optimism. The sadness that had weighed on me for so long started to lift, replaced by guarded hope. I still remembered how quickly Dominic had gone from being resentful to committing fraud. But I also recognized that people can change when confronted with the real consequences of their actions. Eventually, we agreed to meet, this time on my terms. No demands, no expectations of money, just a chance to see each other face to face again. I chose a family-friendly restaurant near the base, well-lit and bustling with people, a neutral ground that felt safe. When Dominic arrived, he looked different, clean-shaven, neatly dressed, and carrying himself with a humility I'd never seen before. Caroline was with him, along with Phoebe and Jake. The kids were excited to see their uncle, and I couldn't help but smile as they chatted about their hobbies and school projects. Dominic and I were cautious at first, like we were navigating a fragile truce. But as we talked about everyday life, my condo, his new job, the kids' soccer games, something in the air softened. The tension loosened. For the first time in years, we actually laughed together over something silly Jake said. In that moment, I realized that while the wounds were deep, they might not be permanent. There, amidst the clinking of silverware and the hum of other diners, our family began to mend. Dominic had a long way to go, but at least he was on the path, and I was slowly finding it within me to forgive him. Months stretched into a year, and Dominic stayed true to his word. He hadn't asked me for money since his low point. He and Caroline moved into an even cheaper place to save more cash, and they slowly rebuilt their credit. Dominic retained his office manager job, rose to a supervisor role, and attended night classes to improve his qualifications. He wasn't living his dream job yet, but he had learned a valuable lesson about humility and responsibility. Our phone calls became more frequent, the bitterness replaced by genuine interest in each other's lives. Sometimes I caught myself recalling how angry I had been, how I'd fantasized about revenge, how I'd considered him practically dead to me. But life is rarely that black and white. Pain can lead to growth, and betrayal can lead to redemption, if a person is willing to put in the work. One day, after finishing a morning shift at the base, I headed home to find an unexpected package on my doorstep. Inside was a simple frame containing a photo of Dominic and me as kids, smiling brightly as we sat on our bikes, ready to ride around the neighborhood. Tucked into the frame was a handwritten note. "Thank you for never giving up on me, completely. I owe you more than I can ever repay." I stared at that photo, emotions flooding my mind. The vengeance I once craved felt distant. In its place was a cautious but genuine love for my flawed brother. We'd both made mistakes. We'd hurt each other. But we were healing, piecing our bond back together step by step. Later that evening, I called Dominic. The conversation flowed easily. He talked about a potential promotion. I told him how I was thinking about renting out my condo down the line to invest in something bigger. We made jokes, teased each other about old memories, and said goodbye with warmth in our voices. As I hung up, I stood in my living room, gazing at the photo in the frame, pinned to the wall. For the first time since this entire saga began, I felt at peace. The condo that once symbolized the start of our rift now represented a milestone of independence and growth for both of us. Yes, Dominic had tried to take advantage of me. Yes, he crossed boundaries, betrayed trust, and forced me to make tough choices. But in the end, cutting him off was the wake-up call he desperately needed. It tore our family apart for a while, and it stirred more hatred and sorrow than I ever thought possible. But through the tumult, a new understanding emerged, a chance for us to build a more honest relationship. Our story was far from perfect, but that's what made it real. And in the end, we found a kind of happy resolution, one forged by acknowledging our flaws, our anger, and our love all at once. I may have stopped supporting my brother's family after his cruel sneer, but somehow, that decision became the turning point that saved him, saved me, and saved whatever was left of our bond as brothers. As of this moment, I can't predict what new challenges life might throw our way. But I do know this. We faced our darkest conflict and emerged on the other side with hope. And, for now at least, that hope is enough.